Before we start this awesome episode, we got to give a shout out to our friends and sponsors at Pet Greens.
Yes, this is like our cat's 5-star salad bar.
Right. They nibble on their organic cat grass like it's fancy hors d'oeuvres before every meal.
Yeah, and honestly, it's really an important part of their routine as well. It helps with their digestion, and it even helps with those hair balls.
Yeah, it does. And it's totally organic. No pesticides, herbicides, or any of that junk.
Nope, just super healthy greens that bring the outside in and help our indoor cats thrive inside.
You can find Pet Greens on Amazon, Chewy, Petco, PetSmart, PSP, and for our Canadian listeners at Pet Value too.
Okay, so now let's get to the podcast.
With wine. Always with wine. I'm Jay.
I'm Adrian.
And together we are the
Two
Crazy Cat Ladies. I'm going to cut you.
I think I just peed.
Buckle up.
We're back in the closet.
Welcome to another episode of Back in the Closet with the Two Crazy Cat Ladies. Guys, we are so excited and honored tonight to be joined by the one, the only Dr. Judy Morgan to talk about a very spicy topic today, which we're excited to dive into. Thank you, Dr. Judy, for joining us.
No problem. Happy to be here.
I literally am having palpitations. I'm so excited and so grateful that you're here. Dr. Judy Morgan, for anyone in our community that's popping on that may not be familiar with the work that you do and how you are beautifully changing this world, would you mind to give a short intro?
A short intro? Okay. I graduated from veterinary school in the age of dinosaurs back in 1984. I practiced in traditional medicine for the first few years, said this really is awful. And luckily, I accidentally took a chiropractic course. It opened my eyes to what else was out there, started the deep dive into every alternative therapy you can imagine. And really hit my hot button when I started studying traditional Chinese veterinary medicine, took acupuncture, food therapy. I love making food, designing diets for our animals. I wrote my first book in 2014, From Needles to Natural. And once I wrote that book, I had to start marketing the book because, people don't just automatically buy it if they don't know it exists. Shocking. And so I'm now working on book number 10. And so that platform to start teaching people about holistic medicine and get them to look at my books and look at, what I was talking about led me to here, which is the owner of Naturally Healthy Pets. And we are an e-commerce and educational platform with a goal to empower pet parents through knowledge so that you can keep your pets healthy longer, and we'll all be happier because we get to have our little fur creatures spend more time with us and really enjoy life together. So my whole goal is to really empower you to be able to take control. And for all the crazy work I've been doing for the past few years, in 2024, I was named Holistic Veterinarian of the Decade by the International Association of Top Professionals.
I know, and it's one of many awards actually that you have over the years. But that is we're honored that you're here with us today, but also just so proud of the work that you have done over so many years of sticking to your guns.
I have a question though. That incredible story, totally off topic, that we're about to dive into. You said you accidentally took your first chiropractor course. I mean, obviously it wasn't an accident in hindsight, but what do you mean?
So I like to say that my life is a series of fortunate accidents. And part of that is my belief in a higher power, which in my case is God, who just keeps throwing things at me and saying, well, pick this up and run with it. And I'm usually like, oh, no. And I say no 100 times. And then finally I'm like, okay. And then it works out. And it's like, oh, yeah, well, I could have made it a lot easier on myself. But what happened is I had bought a partnership in a clinic. It was a satellite of a bigger clinic. And this card came in the mail and it was sitting on the desk and it said, take this course in veterinary orthopedic manipulation. It'll help your surgical cases heal faster. It'll keep your orthopedic cases from, re-injuring themselves, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, well, my partner does all these orthopedic surgeries. I don't. This would be a good way for me to contribute to the rehab or whatever. I was kind of into rehab. And so I really didn't know what it was. And I signed up for it. And then I got there, I showed up late, and I come running in and I sit down and I'm listening to, so I missed the intro of what the whole thing was about. And about 45 minutes into it, I'm like, I'm pretty sure this guy's talking about chiropractic. I don't know if I believe in this. And then I, at the first break, realized that half the people in the room were human chiropractors and half the people in the room were veterinarians. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm learning chiropractic. And I thought about leaving because I wasn't really so sure about this, but we paid a lot of money. I was like, well, we paid for it. I better stick it out. I don't think I can get my money back. And so when I went back to work the next week, I started using what I had learned, and it was so miraculous. It was like, holy cow.
Wow.
Totally accidental. And that started this whole career.
Wow.
That's incredible.
That is
incredible. And it also makes you uniquely qualified to really speak to this topic today. Because I feel like this is one of those topics that is just, we as cat parents, we go to the vet and sometimes it feels like we have to have difficult conversations, or we come home with a specific kind of food, or we are told that we need to get some kind of pharmaceutical. And it's like, you are so uniquely qualified to speak to this. And the topic today is really how the pet food industry itself and pharmaceutical companies, or big pharma, are shaping veterinary care.
Yeah.
What does that mean? When you say that, what does that mean?
It means that the veterinarians are pretty brainwashed. So, when you're standing there talking to your veterinarian about, I want to feed raw food, or I want to make, I love this cat, or I want to make my own food for my pet at home. And the veterinarians are like, oh, you can't do that. The only way you can feed your pets is with this, veterinary formulated big corporate pet food, whether it's a bag, box, or can, but it has to, if it doesn't come from one of those big three, then it doesn't meet the requirements that your pet needs. They made up that whole thing about bag diets, the boutique, exotic, grain-free, whatever the heck the bag thing was. That was all made up. It doesn't exist. But the influence, we still have cardiologists saying you have to add grains to the diet. Like, what cat needs grains in their diet? Hello, 0. What dog needs it? Hello, 0. AFCO has 0 requirement for carbohydrates in pet food, 0. But the veterinarians and the pet food companies say, oh no, corn is very, very good for your cat. I beg to differ. So here's a little story. It's a personal one on me. If you remember January of 2024, when the crap hit the fan with all the pets that were getting sick and dying and bleeding out of both ends from a couple of big pet food brands. And so it started on the Saving Pets One at a Time, Kelly Bones page. And she contacted me and said, we got to get the word out. There's a big problem here. And I said, oh, well, I'm the mouthpiece that has no filter. So sure. And so I went live with it and I said, we have a big problem. And so if we had very similar symptoms in a lot of pets, like we've got 100 complaints about one particular food, then we would add them to our list. It's like, okay, this isn't like one person saying my dog got bloody diarrhea or my cat was puking or I came home and found all my animals dead. It was a lot of people. And so we went live with it. And one of the biggest the biggest pet food company was the one that had the most complaints. And so I named names and I said, I'm just telling people, I'm warning you, be very, very careful here. This might be a good time to switch, rethink it, or be very vigilant. If you open a new bag and your pet's like, I don't think I want to eat that. Don't doctor it up. Believe them. Well, one of my vet school classmates sent me an email, and I will never forget this because I was on a workcation in the mountains writing a book I was working on Yin and Yang 2.0, which I didn't finish that year because all this crap happened. But I'm sitting at the table working, and my best friend Teresa and her husband are there. Like, they always go with us when we're doing these things. And I opened my email in the middle of the day, and there was an email from a classmate, a veterinary school classmate. And she told me that I should have my license taken away, and I should not even be allowed to call myself a veterinarian because I was speaking out against a large pet food company who has been such a friend to the veterinary industry and put a lot of money into the veterinary industry and sponsored a lot of the meetings and continuing education. And how dare I?
Wow. I mean, really though? Like, really?
So brainwashed much? Like,
right?
You have so much loyalty to that pet food company that you can't even open your eyes to look at the patients that are coming in front of you and say, wow, you just opened a new bag of food and all of your animals have bloody vomiting and diarrhea. No, can't possibly be the food. Must be something else in your yard or environment. Like,
yeah.
Unbelievable. And I remember when that started.
Yep.
And I remember feeling grateful for you because at that time we had a number of people reaching out in our community saying, I'm doing this, and we always do try to encourage a good diet. But when you actually came forward and said that, then we could ask, what are you feeding? Like, what are you feeding this?
Yep.
And it felt like, thank you for doing that.
Yeah. It gave us the empowerment to also reach out and tell our community about the subject, to warn, right? Because that's what we're here to do, right? Like, we're not here to make a bunch of money, to, follow rules from people that have a lot of money. Like, that's not what we're in this industry to do. We're in the industry to make a difference. And like you said, help every pet live the longest, healthiest, happiest lives possible, right? We can't do that by staying silent when we know that there might be a tainted food out there that every, cat parent, dog parent could just have in their pantry and feeding, like it's.
And we've had so many food recalls. So back in 2007 with the melamine recall, and then in 2018 and 19 with the excess vitamin D that was in so many different foods. Well, if somebody wasn't brave enough at some point to speak up and say, hey, we're seeing an awful lot of cases, like, you have to start putting the puzzle pieces together. And if nobody ever, raised a red flag, then we never would have found that there was excess vitamin D. We never would have found that there was melamine in the food. And, sadly, with the 2024 thing, we never found the toxic principle. We have no idea we knew what we were looking for, and we couldn't find a lab that could isolate it. So it was a lot of stuff. But, raising a warning flag is just that. It's keep your eyes open and let's see if we can put puzzle pieces together. And for the veterinarians to be, and right after that, so that was early January. Then, like 2 weeks later, I was at VMX, which is the largest veterinary conference in the country down in Orlando. And I was invited to be in the booth and sign books for John Sarber with Gyms for Dogs. He loves holistic medicine, and he's just been a great advocate with all the dog parks. And of course, so many people hate dog parks that, you've got people yelling at you because you're supporting dog parks. Like, how many things can I get yelled at for in one day? And like, I literally had veterinarians running up to me and asking, have you been sued by that pet food company yet? You should be. Like, like death threats. We had death threats. Hugh and I were on our way to the police to report a death threat from somebody fairly local to our area who knew where our farm was, threatened my whole family, our animals. And we were on our way to the police station. I'm walking out the door and I was talking to Gwen, and she said, wait, I think I got it handled. God bless her, because she called the guy. This was just a pet parent. And they happened to have over Cyber Week with all the sales and everything, they had loaded up on that brand of pet food. And so they had a whole garage full of that pet food, and they didn't want to have to throw it away. They didn't have a lot of extra money. So they were mad at me. I'm like, how is this my fault? And literally a death threat because they had a garage full of food that I didn't like. And I'm like, but Gwen contacted Guy and had a conversation with him and explained, what the deal was, and said, you don't have to throw away your food. You don't have to do anything. We're just giving you a fair warning. If you open it and it smells bad, it looks bad, your pets don't want to eat it, your pets get sick, don't use it.
Yeah.
So she made, and the guy was like, I'm really sorry. I lost my mind. I got so emotional. I'm so emotional about my animals. I'm like, I get that, but I'm a little emotional about my family and my animals too, dude.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
well, that's crazy. Really putting the hammer to the head of the nail on this. I feel like we've been in that situation when we go and we're having a conversation with our veterinarian. And I mean, it is difficult to have that conversation. Brainwashing is it's one of those words that has all these connotations, right? But we are speaking to our veterinarian that we have a relationship with, and we're like, wait a minute. They have the best of intentions. What is it about?
Yeah, well, actually, can we just break it down? Could you break it down for us, like where this actually starts? Let's just start with pet food, right? Then we'll get to pharmaceutical, but the pet food industry, since that's what we're talking about. How is it that a completely different industry from the medical industry, the food industry, is shaping these and brainwashing, if you will, these veterinarian and pets
and so I call it brainwashing, but it's really, you're only getting one side of the story.
Right.
It's what's happening. So veterinary schools have endowed chairs. So a professor gets big grants and gets, part of their salary coming from whoever, whether it's a pharmaceutical company, a pet food company. As a matter of fact, one of the new players in the field, Farmer's Dog. I wanted to say Just Food for Dogs, just Farmer's Dog. They've made great inroads because they had all these investors. And so they did a $5 million, 60-second Super Bowl commercial a few years ago.
Yeah.
And so money talks. That was their inroad. Like, everybody watches the Super Bowl, everybody saw that commercial, and everybody went, fresh food for pets? What? Like, my vet doesn't talk about that. So every year at VMX, John's booth happens to be right across from Farmer's Dog. And they do giveaways like, here, come get this fanny pack with Farmer's Dog on it. You have to sit through our 10-minute lecture. And veterinarians literally will line up for the whole length of the expo hall to stand in line to get a damn fanny pack and listen to their 10-minute spiel. And this is people talking all day long, just constant loop, educating these veterinarians. And they're making inroads. They also just endowed a chair with a nutritionist at a vet school. So, well, at least we're getting somebody who's talking about fresh food. So it's an improvement. I still don't recommend the food, but it's better. It's better than dry, dead brown balls in the bowl.
Dead brown balls.
Dead brown balls. Love it.
So the pet food industry spends a ton of money. When we go to the big events, any kind of continuing education, it is sponsored either by pet food companies or big pharma companies, and they are spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands, well, millions of dollars on the advertising, and just giving away freebies right and left. Like, one of the pet food companies sponsors free massages while you're at the conference, all day long. They're paying people to stand there and give free massages. This year at VMX, they had counselors to sit and talk to all the poor stressed out veterinarians who, can't get things together. So they literally were paying for psychotherapy for everybody at the event. Now, when I was, and this has been going on forever, when I was in vet school, I went to University of Illinois. So Upjohn was a pharmaceutical company. It's been sold many times since then, but Upjohn was a pharmaceutical company in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I just liked it because it was in Kalamazoo. What a cool name. So they actually paid for every single senior student every year. The senior class, we'd all drive ourselves to Kalamazoo, And for a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they would wine and dine us, put us up in a hotel, give us tours of the pharmaceutical facility. And their pharmaceuticals were very distinctive labels. The box was half red and half white. All the labels were that way. You better believe when I graduated and I'm standing in my first job and I'm looking at the pharmacy shelf and I'm trying to figure out which antibiotic to use, I'm like, oh, the red and white box. I know those people. They're pretty nice. They bought me dinner and some beer. Okay. It's subtle. Some of it's subtle influence and some of it's not so subtle influence. So when I was in vet school, because we know veterinarians get very little nutritional training.
Right.
And it hasn't changed very much because I've talked to some newer grads and they're like, oh yeah, it's the same. When I was in vet school in our junior internal medicine class, so we're talking about animals with kidney disease. Okay, well, what do we have to do with diet for animals with kidney disease? At that time, there was only one therapeutic diet line, and that was Hill's. Well, all animals with kidney disease get KD. Got it. Put it in my notes. No talk about how you could alter any other diet, how you could make a homemade diet. Like, who would do that? So no, you just open this different bag that says KD or HD or DD or whatever. So every disease just had an alphabet soup prescription diet. That's what we learned about nutrition. And so when you leave school and you go, oh, well, this dog has kidney disease. I have to treat it with KD. I don't have any other options.
Right.
And you get generations of veterinarians coming out going, well, I don't have any other options. Now their option is, I could use the NF that Purina makes, or I can use whatever Blue Buffalo makes, or, you've got other options, but yes, pick your alphabet. But we're not taught, hey,
what's in those diets?
Well, we're taught that all that stuff that's in there is fine.
Right.
Rendered products, absolutely fine. Nothing wrong with that. Well, you want all that to go in the landfill? No, can't do that.
Right.
What I find is really, you want to believe that all humans are beautiful humans, that deep down they are all, want to do something good. And veterinarians, I think, exemplify that better than a lot of professions. But you're taking these beautiful people that are wanting to help, our beautiful companion animals. And then you're taking a pet food industry that's almost exploiting that. I mean,
it's honestly, it's brilliant marketing, really.
Oh, it is.
But it's so personal. I mean, your own experience, veterinarians that we've talked with that have had that same experience as far as, nutrition is that it's this is what you do for this is what you do for that. And then there's hydrolyzed protein. And then there's, it's all just a simple part of a much bigger picture that they do. Right.
Yep.
It just
it all started with Hill's getting the term. They're the only one that's allowed to use prescription diet.
Right.
Everybody else has to be a therapeutic diet. It was brilliant marketing to make them by prescription. You can only get these foods from your veterinarian. They teamed up and convinced the veterinarians, well, this is going to bring you some income. People have to come in every month to pick up their food. And while they're there, they'll make an appointment for this, that, or the other thing. Or, you can say, oh, he's due for some blood work. We've got to see what's going on. And so they teamed up, and it was a beautiful marketing ploy. And the veterinarians bought it hook, line, and sinker and never questioned it. They're like, oh, the company comes in and says, we have all this research behind this food.
Right.
Maybe, maybe not. But we have all this research behind this food. You want research-backed evidence, don't you? Because that's one of the arguments against fresh food, making your own food, buying from the smaller boutique companies. Well, where's your scientific evidence? Where's your testing? Where's, blah, blah, blah. Right. And I would, I think it's a bad line for veterinarians to use, because if we really looked at the research that goes into a lot of things that we're sold that we should be doing, it's pretty marginal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and with these, the research for these pet food companies are funded by these pet food companies. And so we're not looking at true science when this happens in any, in any way realm. If you're trying to prove a point and you put, millions of dollars into, or hundreds of thousands or whatever it costs to create these studies to prove your point, then it is biased research. It is no longer true science.
Right. Because if you hire a company like a independent party to do the research and their research does not give the answer that you want, are you going to publish that? Nope. You just bury that one, never happened, or you twist it around to make it, you pick out the, 1 or 2 points. That's what I love about Dr. Connor Brady's book, Feeding Dogs. It's the science behind raw versus kibble feeding or whatever the name is. But, he's a research nerd and he loves reading those studies and he loves picking them apart. And, when I'm not that research nerd, although every once in a while I go down a rabbit hole and start reading research papers and then I come up for air 3 days later. So what was I doing? But, it's like, I love reading his book. I think it's highlighted in 6 colors. She's like, oh my God, they use this study all the time and say it proves their point, when in actuality, it proves exactly the opposite.
Right. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the, well, I want to ask you this first. So you graduated in 1984. Okay, girl. So we're looking at a few decades.
Few.
Do you feel like our companion animals are healthier today than they were when you first graduated?
No.
What are you see? What have you seen in clinical practice? What have you?
Well, so great research out there, but medium-sized dogs in the 1970s lived, the average life expectancy was 17 and now it's 10.
Yeah.
Wow.
We cut their life in half. How did we do that? Well, we're feeding them food that just keeps getting worse. We are over-vaccinating them, which we're finally starting to pull back on that some. But when I graduated, it was every vaccine, every animal, every year. That was the rules. And I didn't see that changing until the new century. See, I am a dinosaur. The vaccines were a big part of it. I mean, look at what we're seeing in kids. Like when I was little, we probably, as a child, had 12 vaccines and now they have 80 something. And we have a generation of very sick, both mentally and physically, teenagers and young adults.
Mm-hmm.
It's very sad, but we're seeing the same thing in our animals. We don't notice it as much in the animals because they don't have to read textbooks and they don't really have to interact in a classroom and, do things that people have to do. But I bet if we could get inside the brains of a lot of our dogs and cats that have had vaccines every year for 10 years, we'd probably find out they're really screwed up too. So, and now, we've got the whole, let's give pesticides to every animal, no matter what. I mean, the veterinary associations and the Veterinary Parasite Association, they say that every animal should be on some sort of a pesticide every month, all year round, no matter where you live.
What?
Yeah.
That's their,
Not even like depending on the probability.
Every animal, every month, all year. That's the pharmaceutical industry getting their influence in there so that they're making money. Why would you, where you live, where mosquitoes are not a big deal, heartworms are not really a big deal even in dogs, why would you put all of your indoor cats on heartworm preventative every month all year round?
Right.
But that's the recommendation. Like I never gave heartworm preventative to cats, period, in my practice. I was like, that's dumb. They're not they're not a natural host for it. But the corporate veterinary practices, they want all the animals on these pharmaceuticals every month, all year round, cats and dogs. Flea, tick, heartworm, intestinal parasite. I mean, I don't know about you, but I never have intestinal parasite problems with my animals.
Mm-mm.
I've got cats that live outside, catch mice, catch birds, live in the barn, eat raw food. Their stool samples are always negative. So
Yeah.
why would I be giving them drugs?
Well, and I think it's not really difficult for anybody to, even the people that are just coming out of vet school to look at the, history of the lifespan of cats and dogs. Then and now, and so so it seems kind of common sense to ask the questions or to say our pets are not healthier now. And then you think in your head, like, these companies, right, the pharmaceutical industry and the pet food industry have to know that as well. They're the ones that are always looking at the research and doing the stuff and things, right? So if they have this information and they know this, why would they continue down this path other than for some reason wanting to shorten the lifespan, increase?
It's very hard to.
It's all money.
They're just looking at profits. It's all money for from the pharmaceutical industry standpoint. It is, and the pet food standpoint, it's all profits. We're screwed up enough on the human medical side. I mean, the vaccine companies have immunity. Like, you can be vaccine injured and can't do a darn thing about it.
I don't think a lot of people know that. Will you repeat that? I don't think a lot of people know that.
Vaccine companies, pharmaceutical companies have immunity. You can be vaccine injured and there's nobody you can sue and there's nobody going to pay your medical bills, and it's a nightmare. I'd love to see that get changed for people. So if we can't even change it for people, we're not going to see it for our pets. And, what is the value of a pet? So we're seeing this now with Librela and Silencia. That's the dog. The Librela is for dog arthritis. Silencia is for cat arthritis. There have been over 7,000 deaths in 2 years. There have been over 55,000 complaints to FDA. FDA sent out a Dear Veterinarian letter when it was only on the market for a year saying, yeah, we're seeing some side effects. Because here's the thing. A drug company can get a drug approved with just doing a very small study. They can have 200 animals in that study, and a certain number of them can drop dead or be taken out of the study, and they just pretend they didn't exist. It's like, oh, we started with 214, 8 of them had to be removed from the study, so we ended with 206, but they don't tell you, what happened to those 8. But look, these did so well that, FDA will approve it, and FDA approves it. Well, then who's the real guinea pig? The real guinea pigs are your pets, when now it hits the market and now we're going to sell 1 million doses of this thing. Okay, now we've sold 1 million doses and we have animals dropping dead left and right. So what has happened, now it's a he said, she said. Zoetis, who manufactures this drug, and let me tell you, they manufacture a lot of drugs that are hurting a lot of animals, but they always spin it to look how many we've helped. And if let's say you had a cat with arthritis and your vet talked you into giving it Silencia, and then the next thing you know, your cat can't eat, your cat's head pressing in the corner, your cat can't walk, your cat's incontinent, and you go through 30 days thinking, well, the shot's going to wear off in 30 days. You get 30 days in, you've managed to keep the cat alive, and he's still no better on day 31. And then you end up putting your cat to sleep, and you say, well, my cat was fine until we gave this drug.
Yep.
They will say, how much did it cost you to buy that cat? And that's how much money you get.
Wow.
So pets have no value. If you have a top of the line champion breeding show dog, yeah, you might get a little more money. But it's very hard. And it's very hard to find a lawyer who will even take the case.
Right.
And so, even when I was in practice, every time the drug reps would walk in the door and say, oh, we have this new, greatest, latest, blah, 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 no side effects, yada, yada. And I'd say, come back in 5 years and we'll see what happens in the next 5 years. And then I'll decide whether this is something that is going to cross my doorstep. Most of it didn't. But, the veterinarians don't have time to dive deep into the research. And when the drugs are brand new, there is no Facebook group that says, hey, look, all these animals are dying. And so there's no way for you to find out that there's going to be all these problems. And they don't even know there's going to be all these. I mean, maybe they do. But that particular drug, which is a monoclonal antibody against nerve growth factor, they tried to use that in humans and did research on it for many years, and it got pulled because it was causing rapid onset polyarthritis. So people who had a little bit of arthritis a year after taking the drug had debilitating, horrible, the bones just fused together, awful. And now we're seeing it in dogs.
Wow.
So dogs who started on the product a year ago suddenly have that same thing. And it was pulled from the market for people because of that. Like, it never got approved. And they stopped the research because the side effects like, who signs up for these studies? Like, oh, I'll be the guinea pig. So, I would say to people, don't be the one to let your pet be the guinea pig. Like, wait for something to be out on the market for 2 years, and then start looking up, what are the side effects?
Yes, I know there are Facebook groups that are my cat was killed by Silencia Facebook group, right? Like, it's a big thing.
And we saw that same thing when Bravecto, NexGard, when those came out, like the Facebook groups that were popping up they're still very active. Yeah. And so those have been out, the isoxazolines have been out since 2013. They're still there, even with all the dead animals, they're still there, and they're still making a ton of money.
Yeah.
We saw a commercial the other day that we both looked at each other. We were like, seriously? You just mentioned the name of the company. It's Bravecto, and their commercial was about a one and done for 365 days.
Yeah, Bravecto. It's an injection of Bravecto that lasts for 12 months.
Can you imagine?
So here's the question, because I think that this is where we run into, when we're dealing with pet parents, and we are going to run into issues with diet with our veterinarians when we're at the vet's office. Maybe our cat is not feeling well, and they're like, oh, we had this happen with our Pooh Bear. He needed to be moved to a hydrolyzed protein diet. Right now, we obviously had more information and more, but it was still difficult for me, Dr. Judy, to not pay for that $84 bag of hydrolyzed protein.
She was there alone and had to call me. And I was like, are you seriously calling me? Of course we're not doing that.
But that's how, because I love this veterinarian. They have been so helpful. And the other thing is also the pharmaceuticals, right? It's like, here, we've got this injection, this will help, and then we can do that. It's like you have a yes or no moment. It's not like you can sit there and be like, oh, may I see the insert for that? Have you heard of any side effects for this? You know what I mean? What? And it's very hard. It's almost a bridge too far for me to believe that a pharmaceutical company that is out there making these beautiful commercials about saving our from terrible things, that there is anything nefarious about it. Maybe some mistakes along the way, but certainly not this industry-driven, let's just try it, and if they die, it's fine. Kind of, it almost seems a bridge too far until we do start looking into it. What can we do as, it would be one thing if, like, this information has been out there for many years, many years. So you would think that the fact that the truth exists, that it is acknowledged, that it is reported, that it's out there for all of us to discover for ourselves, that it would start to change things. And just last week, we saw a commercial for Bravecto Quantum, a 365-day cure for what?
We've got the once-a-year heartworm injection. So, because are we that lazy as consumers that we say one and done? I don't have to think about this for a year. We need to not be so lazy. We need to ask questions. And, we all walk around with our mini computers. Take 30 seconds, type that thing into your search engine and say, what are the side effects of whatever it is that they want you to have.
Yeah.
And, you know, if they can't give you 30 seconds to do that, although I will say there's a lot of vet offices where the internet does not work, you might have to step outside, then just say, you know what, I'm going to have to think about that. I'll get back to you. I'll make another appointment on my way out the door, but I'm going to go research this before I say yes.
Yeah.
We really need to stick to our guns. It was funny. Somebody who's in my hospice group, getting certified in hospice care, she had to take her dog in for a dental. And she said, I know when I pick the dog up, they're going to hand me a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory for pain. They're going to hand me antibiotics, and they're going to hand me gabapentin. And I said, well, you know, obviously we don't know what's going to happen when the dog's there for the dental. But, you know, if you don't feel that you need those things, feel free to say, no, I've got an alternative and I'm fine. And so she contacted me after she got the dog home, and I said, so what happened? She said, oh, I took all the drugs home with me. And she said, I just didn't feel like having the argument. So I get it. I forget, I had one of my animals in the vet not too long ago. And when I picked the animal up, it was kind of the same thing. And there actually was one drug that I knew I was not going to give my animals, and I ended up paying for it and taking it home because I was like, you know what, I just don't feel like having this argument right now. So I get it. I totally get it. Like sometimes, you know, especially if it's not something really expensive, but if they're trying to give you $100 drug and you know there's no way you are ever going to give it, save your $100. Like just politely say, not going there. But it can be really difficult because and I was having a conversation with a young holistic veterinarian. She's been working in traditional, and she's 8 years in, and she's so fed up. And I finally talked her into opening her own holistic practice. But you know, she's struggling with the same thing. There's standard of care, and the veterinary boards. Look, Margot Roman. I don't know if you guys know who she is, but holistic vet from Massachusetts. She's lost her license a couple of times because she doesn't follow the standard of care from a traditional standpoint. And so it makes it really, really difficult for the holistic veterinarians when you're being judged by the standard of care, which is big pharma and big pet food. You know, and so if you get a complaint against you and you go, well, you know, I designed a homemade diet and we were using these herbs and these supplements, they're going to yank your license. So it's a bit of a catch-22.
That's another part of this, a component of this, and I know we're already running out of time. Why? But another component of this, and I think you just recently did a video about this, and I feel like we recently had a conversation with a veterinarian in traditional practice who, you know, she's not immune from social media or any of these things. And she had actually had, I think it was one of her clients that came in and asked something about, was it herbs or was it an alternative for something? She went looking it up. She found a holistic doctor that was posting online about this. I wonder who it was, but really like found this stuff fascinating. And also there was no downside to it, right? It's not like, right. So she felt really frustrated, a little fearful in her practice, even considering mentioning these things with listening ears. And the other part of this equation that I find interesting, and we're talking about the pet food industry, the pharmaceutical industry, is that so many veterinarian clinics private clinics are being purchased by large corporations.
Pet food companies.
They're actually pet food companies. And that comes with a whole standard of care protocol.
Yes.
That is
it's a standard of care protocol, and it's also required minimums. So this young veterinarian that I was talking about, she worked in corporate for a couple of years, and you know, they would, at the end of every month, they would give you your list, and it would say things like, you did not sell enough fecal samples testing this month. You did not sell enough Lyme vaccine. Here's your quota. You did not meet it. Therefore, there will be no bonus pay, you know, because a lot of them are paid pro sal, which is you've got a salary and then production. And if you don't meet your production requirements, you're on your flat salary. And that is a horrible way to practice medicine. You know, it's like, well, no, I did stool sample testing on every animal that needed it. I did not sell it to everybody who didn't need it. And so the veterinarians are even having their ability to treat individually taken away from them. One of my clients, she was boarding her dog at a PetSmart, and they have, I guess Banfield was associated with that one at the time. And so her dog it was a female, and it had bloody urine while it was at the kennel because it's very stressed. And when she got back, there was $1,000 bill for the workup for the bloody urine, because their protocol in their notebook, it says you must do a culture and sensitivity. You must do imaging. So it had to have x-rays. You must do a complete CBC, chem, and urinalysis. So she had to get like everything. And, you know, then they handed her amoxicillin. And she's like, that's very expensive amoxicillin. But it's, you know, she said, I would have been happy if they just ran a urinalysis. They saw bacteria in there. Okay, we need an antibiotic. But no, their protocol, and this is standard of care. So, you know, but unfortunately, standard of care has priced pet owners out of owning pets.
Yeah.
Or out of being able to take them to the veterinarian if they're sick. And then, you know, the veterinarians online are just moaning and complaining about clients all the time. Like, oh, they come in and they want titers. I don't like to do titers. I just charge them $600 and that makes them shut up. Or, you know, they don't want to give the vaccines. And, you know, then I have to have this whole argument with them. Or they waited so long to bring this animal in that now it's going to cost thousands to try to save the animal. And, you know, we just recommended euthanasia. And I'm like, well, this is part of the reason people don't come in. One, they know they're going to have to spend $1,000. You bring a sick animal in, you're going to spend $1,000 guaranteed. People don't have that money. Nobody has, like, you know, groceries are a little high. Gas is a little high. People are struggling a little bit. My daughter took her dog in for vomiting and diarrhea 2 weekends ago. Went in on Friday morning, came home on Saturday night. It was $7,200. There was no surgery involved in that. That was IV fluids and a whole bunch of x-rays repeated. And every time they did a set of x-rays, it was over $1,000 because they had to be sent out to a board certified radiologist to be read. The veterinarians aren't even allowed to read their own x-rays. Yeah. Well, because that's the standard of care. Well, okay. So when you hear a heart murmur, that means every single animal with a murmur now has to go to a cardiologist, which is $1,500. Like, what happened to the veterinarian being able to say, you know, general practitioner, is their only job to be the referral source? It's kind of like human medicine. What does your GP do? Your GP is just the person who steers you to the next specialist. Right. So do our animals now have to have 6 different specialists in order to navigate life? Nobody can afford that. It's gotten a little out of hand. But, you know, the veterinarians are afraid to be sued if they don't do it that way.
Right. I was going to say there's fear on both sides of the equation. It's so where do we go from here in your experience with all this knowledge? Because I don't want everyone to feel this like, wow, we are all screwed.
In your stomach, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it feels like that in the human industry too, right? Like in the human medical
but I feel
field.
like it's moving faster. I really do feel like in the human world that things are moving. We have a homeopathic doctor. We have access to information and resources that we see the difference that it can make. We are being better about our own proactive care because we can be like, oh, I'm 49. This is starting to bother me. I should probably pay attention to that, right? Our kids aren't talking to us like that. And you're exactly right. Last summer when we had Madison that started vomiting out at 4:00 in the morning, we were $7,000 later and grateful for every penny that we spent that saved her life. But oh my God,
fluids and tests.
We would not. There is a day that would not have been the outcome. Yeah. And this is that feeling, that pit in our stomach. Do you have, if you were to share with our community 3 things that we can do to be empowered to make sense of some of this and to do our best, as you said at the top of this podcast, to help our pets live happier, healthier, longer lives? Do you have?
Sure. One thing that I would recommend to everyone, if you have a private veterinary practice that is not owned by corporate, try to seek them out, make friends with them, get them on your side, find a veterinarian that you can work with, even if it is within corporate, but find somebody that you can work with that isn't going to be combative. So I go to a traditional veterinarian with my animals now because I don't practice here. So I go to a traditional vet, but I walk in and say, I feed raw and I vaccinate so minimally, it's going to make your head spin. Are you okay with that? And she was like, yeah, okay.
Same.
And, so you need to find that person who's not going to argue every single point with you. They know that I'm never going to buy flea and tick pesticides. And then you be really, really, really nice to them. So, stop by with bagels. Like every time I write a book, I bring them copies of the new book for the staff. And, it's just find somebody that you can work with and then be really nice to them so that when you call them with something's not like, I called them one morning at 8:00 and said, I know you just opened, but I got a cat with a broken leg because it's pointing the wrong direction. I'm dropping them off. And they were like, okay, that's what you want. You want that person who's like, yeah, I trust your judgment and I can work with you and I'm not going to argue with you. And you're probably more likely to find that in a private practice if at all possible. Yeah. Avoid over vaccinating and over medicating your pets. My 7 outside barn cats they're 5 years old. They've had 1 distemper and 1 rabies, and they're raw fed and they are the healthiest animals. One poor cat gets picked on by the others. And so she had all these bite wounds all over her butt a couple of weeks ago, and it just looked gnarly. And I thought, maybe we should take this cat in and sedate her and clean up these wounds. Well, she wouldn't let me catch her. She had other ideas. And I thought, all right, I see you twice a day when it's feeding time and you come up to the barn. We're going to see what happens here. Well, we're 2 weeks in and she's grown hair back and and it was ugly, but it is amazing how much Mother Nature will kind of do her thing. Now, obviously it's different. If you have an animal who is puking and can't hold down anything, you probably should have them checked, particularly a cat for, maybe a string foreign body or, cats like to get into things. Yeah. I would say cats end up going to the veterinarian. Actually, this is a statistic. Cats go to the veterinarian much less than dogs, which is kind of a good thing.
It is.
Because if you've ever seen a cat with a vaccination sarcoma, you'll never vaccinate your cat again because they're ugly and they're deadly. And I had a lot of cat clients who had gone through that with a cat, and then future cats, they're like, not getting near my cat with a vaccine. And I can't blame them. Yeah. And feed them really, really well. Feed them the cleanest, best non-kibble diet that you possibly can, particularly for kitty cats. That will go so far for the health of your cats. The only thing that I do have 2 indoor cats too, and they're 15. The only thing they go in for is if they're having a dental problem. Like if I've got some teeth that need to get worked on, I'm like, okay, you guys are going in. Otherwise, they don't go anywhere. They don't see anybody. They don't do anything. Like, why would I treat them with a bunch of chemicals and vaccines and things? They're not exposed. Where we get into the most trouble with the vaccine thing is if you want to take them to boarding, grooming, daycare, which cats do that a lot less often as well. So, I mean, I was reading statistics because I'm doing a cancer presentation, so I'm doing a lot of research. Dogs over age 10, like over 50% of them are going to die of cancer. With cats, it's only 32%. And I think it's because we don't use as many chemicals and vaccines and things on our kitty cats. Yeah. It's sort of what I would call benign neglect. It's like, oh, I neglected to take them in to get shots last year. That's a good thing. Yeah. And I'm not saying we should never vaccinate our animals because vaccines can be helpful, but cats really like to make tumors when we poke them with things. So we try not to poke them with things if at all possible.
Yeah. Man, really, if you think about it, just those 3 things And I love your kindness message when it comes to, because it's so true. We've experienced this in many different with many different people in our lives, right? Where they've we're a little scared of them. They might be a little scary. They might be a little I'll just say scary, right? And we're like, okay, what do we do? Let's just be super nice. Let's just, give them, like, let's just be super nice to them. And then, then that it eliminates the tension. It eliminates any fear there when you've made a friend out of someone that you need, right? Like you need a
exactly.
So I think that, making a good relationship, number one, but then not over vaccinating, not over medicating, and feeding a good diet, the best diet that you can afford to feed, really just will, that is the proactive care.
And take the 30 seconds to Google side effects of
Yes.
that situation, because it is crazy when you're at the vet and there's something wrong. My brain ceases to function, and I can hear names of pharmaceuticals that I'll be like, ooh, I wouldn't do that, but they're talking to me and no words come out and I can't even do you know what, like in that moment. So just take that, just be like, I'm going to need a second to just look this up.
Yeah.
Also,
yeah. And if it means saying, I'm going to go home and think about this, talk to whoever, I'll get back to you. And then go ahead and make an appointment on your way out. Because you can, if you go home and go, whoa, no way I'm doing that, you can call them back and go, I need to cancel that appointment. Something came up. It's that simple. But because let's say they want you to do something and you go, oh, I'm not ready to make that decision right now. I'll get back to you. And then you call them back 3 days later and they're like, yeah, our next appointment's in 4 weeks. It's not going to be very helpful. So always better to make that appointment, and you can always cancel that appointment.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I love it.
And just meeting people human to human where they're at. I mean, that's the thing that is, some of the biggest conflicts that we've had with veterinarians. We have been fired from clinics. Jay has fired clinics. And I think that kindness role, that meeting, these are humans that are dedicating their lives to helping us in our time of need and to helping our animals be healthier.
And often, especially as a veterinarian, doing the best that they can with what they have too, right? Like they're doing the best they can with the knowledge that they have. They just don't have, certain knowledge, right?
And a lot of times when they're getting combative or defensive over you wanting to do something alternative, the reason they're getting defensive is because they have zero knowledge about that. And now they feel stupid, and they don't want anybody to ever think they're stupid. Like none of us do. Like, how would you like it if I walked up to you and said, what do you mean you don't know about Hawthorne for heart disease and blood pressure? You'd be like, okay, you're crazy. So, they're not trained in that. And it's like I say, they're brainwashed in that they're given one side of a story.
Yeah.
So this young vet who's been out 8 years, she told me, and she went to NC State here to the vet school, that, the movie Pet Food that Cole Harrington did, where they, go inside the pet food industry and show how it's really made and blah, blah, blah. They actually show that to the vet students and then refute everything in it and say it's all lies. That's what they tell the vet students. So when your veterinarian is going, raw food, that's going to kill everybody. Well, that's because AVMA and AHA say that, and because they're told that the pet food movie is a bunch of lies.
Wow. That's nuts. How could they even, that's actually real footage.
I know. I need to get a hold of Cole and tell him that.
Yeah, you do. Because
I was floored by that. I was like, wow. Here's the truth. But I feel like they feel like they have to do it because they get so much money from the big pet food companies that they probably feel like, oh, if we don't refute this, big pet food's gonna be mad at us.
Do you know, I was so shocked by Pet Food that it is hard to believe.
It wasn't for me.
I started looking up, because her dad worked at a rendering facility while she was in high school. But I started looking up rendering facilities, their addresses, and going to Google Earth.
Oh yeah.
If you want to see it for yourself,
Yep.
They haven't taken this down yet.
Yeah.
So
You'll see the piles of dead carcasses in their parking lot.
Yep.
it is
Disgusting.
Yeah.
It is absolutely disgusting.
Okay, so there's something really exciting though. I know that this is kind of a heavy one.
I love it. Spicy. It's fun.
It is spicy, and I think it's empowering because there is this part, once you know better, you can do better. And I feel like there is a lot of information, like where I come from, a lot, like I it's not that I can't believe it, it's I don't want to believe something, right? You want to believe in unicorns and kittens. Right?
Rainbow kittens.
Right. And then we find ourselves in real life situations where it is so important for us to have this knowledge proactively so that we can react to situations or respond to situations instead of reacting, where I think that clash of fears really does damage human relationships and best outcomes. Something exciting. So you've written 10 books.
10 books. 10 books. And you're so generous to offer everyone, all the listeners here tonight, 50% off. That's 50% off your books. And the discount code is here in the description. So you guys can check that out. You can get all of your books on your website, right?
Yes, all of my books are on the website. There, I think there's 8 or 9 on the website. There's one that I co-authored with somebody way back that we don't carry, but because the new ones are so much better. But yes, there's a bunch.
Awesome. So yeah, link is in the description here to go to the website to purchase the books plus the discount code. Thank you so much for that generous offer. That's huge and is going to help so many.
One of the most proactive tools that we pet parents can have. I love your brain. I love your mission. And I love that you invest so much of your own time putting that information out there for us to be able to digest by ourselves and make better decisions moving forward.
Yeah.
It's also that you can be empowered. It is just so that you don't feel cornered, that you have that knowledge. And it's interesting. One of the things that we talked about a while ago was that people should buy one of my books and give it to their veterinarian.
Yes.
Plant the seeds.
Plant the seeds.
Which it's pretty funny because I talk to people from all over the world, but a lot of the ones here in the US, they'll say, well, I was looking for a holistic veterinarian. I wasn't sure if I found one. And then when I got there, the veterinarian had your book and it was all dog-eared and highlighted. So I was like, all right, I'm in the right place.
Do you have a particular book that you would want to share with our community that would be a particularly good book to share with their veterinarian?
The Raising Naturally Healthy Pets would be pretty good because in that one, there's actually a chapter on how to have these difficult conversations with your veterinarian, how to find the right veterinarian for you and your animal. So that's a good one. I used to say my very first book, From Needles to Natural, was the best one to give your vet, but that's the one that I'm in the process of rewriting right now. And there are some things that are in there that I'm just shaking my head now going, I can't believe I ever said this. So, because I've learned so much more in the past 15 years. So I wouldn't recommend that one. When the new one comes out at the end of the year, we'll definitely go for that. You're cat people, but if you're dog people, the Yin and Yang nutrition cookbooks are really good. And just as a little side, there might be a cat one coming out. Yeah, it's also in the works, but then I got invited to do all these speaking things this year. And so I'm trying to write 20 presentations while also doing books. And anyway, keep your eyes open.
How did you find a 48-hour day?
Yeah, right.
It's hard. If the cow didn't need to be milked and the chickens didn't need to be fed and the dogs didn't need to be walked.
You're a very highly productive person.
High functioning.
High functioning, highly productive person. So thank you for all that you do. Thank you so much for joining us and spreading your knowledge with our community as well. 3
more podcasts I want to ask you back for already, just from this one conversation. So we will have our people talk to your people. Dr. Judy, you so much. Anything top of mind that we didn't hit or that's just sitting on the top of your head that you want our community to know? Or
I think we're good. What I don't want people to walk away with fear or frustration. You only know what you know. You don't know what you don't know. Sometimes people learn alternative ways to do things, and then they're just so sad because they did something different with their previous pets. And you got to get past that. And you only know what you know, and we all continue to learn. And that's really the goal, is to keep your mind open, continue to learn, and then do the best you can with what resources you have and with what your animal needs, because everyone is an individual. And that's part of what we're trying to get away from, is this one size fits all, like with the quotas. Like, it's not one size fits all. Like, you don't do the same. How many cats do you have? 5?
5.
And you don't give them all the same thing or treat them all the same way. They all have their own little personalities and their own special needs. And so every one of our animals has to be looked at as an individual. And that's part of that conversation that you're having with your veterinarian is, well, maybe that's your protocol across the board for everybody, but my dog or my cat is not everybody. My cat has these special needs, and so I want to design what is the best protocol for my cat.
Yeah.
So, keep that in mind with how you want to do things. Like, every time one of my cats goes in and has a dental or has, kind of anything, it's like, well, here's your Onsior. I'm like, I'll take it. That is one of those, I take it and it's in a box.
We still have, I'm sure, well outdated
we got
in our
things in there
together.
that we came from. Yeah.
So one of my cats got sick. She was head pressing in her bowl the other day, a couple weeks ago. And I was like, you look like you could use some pain meds. There's something seriously wrong with you. So I dug out an Onsior and I gave it to her, and it did make her feel better. I went, well, that was proof that you really have something painful going on. I don't know what it is. Ends up, she's got this really weird autoimmune encephalitis. I'm like, well, yeah, you kind of needed some drugs. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, indoor cat. Don't know.
Baby.
She's doing great now.
She lived with Dr. Judy Morgan.
Yeah,
I would assume as much.
Well, she ended up getting steroids. I'm like, you deserve steroids. Like, we need to get your brain inflammation down. So,
yeah.
But she took them very short term, and she's doing great.
Good.
That.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's also important, I guess, to
Great
note
reminder.
that a great reminder that we're not anti-medicine, right? We're not anti even vaccines, right? Like your cats have been vaccinated, our cats have been vaccinated. They're, if they need medication, then they need medication. But it's not that we're anti. There's a happy medium there where
there's a happy medium. And this cat, like, if I went with what the traditional veterinarian wanted her to have, would have been a lot higher dose for a lot longer time. Right. And so I kind of hit her hard at the very beginning for the first few days, and then I backed off really fast, which if the vet knew how fast I backed off, she would have been kind of crazy. But your cat. Right. And so, and she's doing great. And luckily she's very good. She just eats the pill in her food and doesn't care. But I also started her on some natural things to help smooth out the road, one of which was the PEA. And so, sometimes with our alternative therapies, with herbs, mushrooms, nutraceuticals, whatever it is that we're using, they take a little bit of time. It's not like giving a pill and you get that instant effect. Sometimes these medications can take or these supplements can take a little bit longer to really kick in and grab hold and do their job. So it's like, all right, well, here, you can have the drug at the beginning while I'm starting these other things, and then we can bring the drug down really fast because now everything else is kicking in. Yeah. So that's kind of my philosophy on, use drugs when you need them, and use, kind of hit them hard at the beginning and then be like, okay, good, I can back off. Yeah. One of our dogs had an eye removed a couple months ago. He came home with pain meds. I'm like, you can have pain meds. You had an eyeball removed. I think that probably hurts. You probably have a headache. Except on day 3, he got some really raging diarrhea. And I said, and your pain meds are now done. So here's your alternative things that you can have. But so, it's just judgment on trying to stick with as natural as possible. And then when you do need drugs, you want to use them for the shortest time to get over the hump, and then move on to how can I support the body better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Naturally.
Great words.
And let it do its thing. Like you said about your little barn kitty. It's amazing.
Yeah, the poor barn kitty. I felt so bad for her. But she was like, nope, you're not catching me.
I'll handle it myself.
I have to do one more shout out for your books though, because I remember this feeling, and it is like when there is something wrong. What we had with Madison this past summer, even we got sent home with a bunch of stuff, and Jay, who is obviously more smarter than me,
more smarter. Okay,
smarter.
She's the smart one. I'm the pretty one. She said, let's do this. Let's get her over the hump. And then I'm doing this, and this. And you have that fear initially, right? Because a doctor just told you, and you want to do the right thing. So I love one of the beautiful things that your content, your books, you really do help empower and remove that fear for a lot of people to be able to make those decisions, the knowing better, the doing better part. So
yeah,
we are so grateful to you.
Yes.
Dr. Judy Morgan, it is over an hour. I'm sure your team is like,
next appointment, please.
They're ignoring me.
For now.
Thank you again. Thank you so much for joining us. And we have to have you back on again, because there's just so many things that we talked about that could be another whole podcast in itself. So, so thank you, and have safe travels with all the, I know you're traveling all over the world this year.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun.
It will be fun. It will be fun. Make sure
grace
to have
and
plenty of
ease,
cocktails.
as Rita Hogan always says, with grace and ease.
Yes.
All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us, Dr. Judy Morgan. We're so grateful to you. Thank you so much for this amazing podcast. And we will
see you all very soon.
We'll see you guys soon.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Good night.